Morning, afternoon, evening. I hope you are safe. I hope you're keeping each other safe. That's what's the most important. Um, I'm going to be brief today. There's something that I wanted to talk about for a while. I haven't yet developed the idea all the way, but I wanted to put this, or at least say this, if not just as a signpost to refer to later. Um, but it's something that's been bothering me a lot, in particular on Facebook. Um, Seeing these parallel messaging that has the same impotent effect, right? That's what I'm going to talk about. So let's just start with the first thing: pedophilia. If you want to get out now, you should probably get out. But like pedophilia, let's talk about it, right? So you see all this anti-pedophilia, anti-pedophile rings, and all these allegations floating around Facebook. People talking about what they're going to do, what they should do, could do, how to, all of this mess, right? Statistically, every last one of us knows a pedophile. How about that? We've never have you ever asked yourself? Have you ever asked yourself how many pedophiles do I know? Not if you know any, because the first thing all of us will say is that we don't know any, right? Oh, I don't know any pedophiles. I don't hang out with any pedophiles. I never associate with anybody. Yes, you would, and yes, you do. It's the same with racists, right? Let's take it. So we see all this anti-racism stuff everywhere, particularly from allies being posted, and yet the actual action is nothing because the assumption is, oh, I don't know any racists. I don't hang out with anybody. I don't associate with any racists. So while the outrage is there, the action is absent. The outrage is completely present. Everybody knows how to be outraged on Facebook now. That's great. The action is nil. We see absolutely no action. And like to take it back to the comparison, if this were pedophilia, we would be or at least you presume we would be doing something, right? Because it's the most horrible thing happening to the most vulnerable people, and yet we ain't doing shit. Look at it. We're doing nothing. I'm a victim of a pedophile. Legally, that person is protected in Connecticut. Legally. In the 90s, like people y'all elected made that the case. That's a fact, right? Now we have racism being treated in a similar way. We're sort of morally, we recognize that it's wrong, but we don't connect that outrage to any responsibility, to any responsible action. There is no follow through. So we're in right now what feels like a place of growth, but really is just a holding pen or a dead space because this has no goal, it has no ambition. It's not even really anti anything. It's just a codified emotion. It's a very elaborate meme. It is. It is. It's a meme that will run its course like all memes run their course. And we'll think back to it and think about how we were included in it. Only the terror of this one is like our inclusion will give us this sense of self-righteousness. Because we posted a little Black Lives Matter ring around our profile picture that year when we thought things were toughest for black people. When we finally recognized black people. When we finally started to say black people without feeling weird or something. That's what's happening with this. It seems as if so. I'm noticing, especially in the comments on Facebook and other places. And I said I'm going to be brief, but damn that. It seems like allies and other folk are trying to educate racists and like are trying to win them over. Y'all, we don't have to win them over. There's nobody out there trying to educate pedophiles. There's no one. There's nobody out there like, oh, let's just make sure we bring them into the fold. Oh, that's my Uncle Roger. There's nobody doing that. Why? Because we understand they represent a threat before we understand like their humanity, right? The threat that they pose is larger than their human dignity. What does that mean? It means that not that we ignore their human dignity, but that we take care of the threat that they pose first. And not at the expense of their human dignity, but we take care of the threat that they pose first, right? Cool. Same thing with racists, only we don't ever do that with racists. We don't, because we never consider them as the threat that they are, or rather, white folk never consider them as the threat that they are. Let's just take this to the finest point I can for now. Who do you think is killing black people? Right. Who do you think is out there murdering black people, stalking and hunting and killing black people? Who do you think populates the KKK? Aliens? It's people you know. I can't get that. Like, I can't make that point strongly enough. It's people you know. And by the way, the KKK is an extreme example. We can drop that. We can drop Nazis. We can drop all of that. Because they don't need to carry the banner to be part of the club, do they? No. They don't need to know the oath to behave exactly the same way. The rules are so clear on how racism works, anybody can play the game if you're white enough. Or if the price is white, whichever one you like. We don't combat racism with the same fervor that we do pedophilia, yet we're posting them with the same amount of outrage. And also, we don't combat pedophilia. We don't. We have to now recognize that we're stuck in the first step, the outrage. We've been in that for months now. What changes have we made? We've invested almost all of our energy and thought and hope into a presidential election that we know, both measurably, anecdotally, and intrinsically, like we know it's not going to change the things we want it to change. They're saying that themselves. What does that mean? That we don't vote? No, it means that we place our energy in other places as well. Yes, vote, but that's one day. That's one day of going out and doing the thing. We don't have to prepare months for this. Let's get off of that. And not get off of the idea of voting. Register and vote. But like once you register, then go vote that day. That's not hard. What do we do in the interim? Wait? We just sit and wait knowing that injustice is being visited daily upon black people. And we wait because it's cool to wait and let that happen because it's not me. So let's wait for the best time to get this together. The best time was at the beginning. We're hundreds of years late. And this is not being treated with any urgency at all. That's probably what's the most disheartening, right? Both of them, actually, is that I'm seeing a whole lot about pedophilia on Facebook. And everybody supposedly is this champion and anti-pedophile. And I'll fuck them up and all of that. No, you won't. No, you fucking won't. Like, no, you won't. No, you won't. Name someone you know that has once beat up a pedophile. There's millions of pedophiles. There's no one. Name one person you know who has followed through on that dream wish of doing all these unmentionable unspeakables. They don't exist. Because in reality, what happens is when you're faced with something that evil, you're shocked, and then you stay shocked because it protects you. It's the same with racism. Y'all stay shocked. Every single time somebody posts something racist, you get all these wow emojis. Like, for real? In 2020? In 2020 in September, y'all still shocked? Y'all still can't believe? Y'all still disgusted? We have been in this shit. Even if you want to click, like, you can take the whole rest of your life before this year and say you didn't know. Cool. Like, you've known now at least since June. At what point do we decide that there's something that we have to do as citizens rather than just organize around the power structures? Like, yeah, we can do that. Let's get Biden and Harris in there, holding our nose or whatever. Fine. But what do we do, though? Because black people are still suffering injustice. Women are still suffering injustice. Trans people are still suffering injustice. Non-binary people. There's entire groups suffering injustice. Do we tell them to wait until November? To keep getting fucked up till November? Is that what we would do if there was a pedophile out there raping children? We would just say, oh, well, let's just wait until we elect that next governor. Right? Well, we wouldn't do that. Again, we would treat the threat exactly like it is. There are far too many pedophiles getting away with what they get away with because people don't have the guts to stand up to them. You think you do. You don't. It's the same with racists. There's a whole lot of racists still getting away with a whole lot of racist shit. Not because they're racist per se, but because y'all let them. That's a fact. If it was behavior that was unacceptable in the community, it wouldn't happen in the community. The community would not allow it. The community would stand against it. We've seen this happen with all other kinds of behaviors that aren't necessarily illegal. But racism stands, just like pedophilia stands, because we don't stand up to it. We pretend that this verve, this outrage we feel is useful energy, and it isn't. We need to recognize that outrage is not useful energy. All it does, it's enough to open your eyelids. That's all it does, and not even all the way. This needs to manifest into something tangible and measurable, rather than just trading memes, because children are still being raped. It doesn't matter what y'all are saying about it. It's still happening. You're still doing the exact same thing as when you knew it, when you didn't know it was happening. Nothing. Injustice is still being served up just as regularly, just as piping hot, and like we ain't doing shit about it. This Breonna Taylor nonsense is just happening. It's developing now. And we're still sitting here like a better future is just guaranteed on the horizon because a couple white folk is paying attention now. We are stuck, absolutely stuck in this outrage, in this first step. And while we sit here and pontificate and wax poetic about what kind of future we can build, people are still suffering injustice. This isn't being treated like an emergency. I'll say it a different way. If it was another community under siege, we deal with this right away, and we know this. Don't we? Like, we have the heroin epidemic. Black folk have been suffering from heroin and every other drug since the beginning of time. When it was crack and it was black people, we put them in jail. But now that it's heroin and opioids and white people, we put them in treatment. Right? What we're seeing now is just this start, like just this first step again of outrage, and then no tangible follow-up. We think that changing our philosophical positions and stances on Facebook is really making a difference, or going out into the world and going, hey man, that's not cool, is making a difference. We're not using the full extent and full measure of our empathy to affect change. That's the problem. That's why pedophiles keep pedophiling. That's why racists keep racisting. Because they've discovered what I have discovered, and their victims have all discovered, is that most of y'all are cowards, and you just don't know it. Most of y'all have no intention of standing up to evil. You just want to play the part of being outraged by it. That's it. When it comes to doing the actual work, you back off. So, like I did way back in, what was it, June, May? I invite y'all to take the next step, as I have been inviting y'all to take the next step for months now. Something needs to be done. My town has stopped. There was supposed to be another community event, and that stopped until after the election for some reason. And we're not in the right space for it. Like we're going to be in a more cohesive space after the election somehow. I don't know. I'm at a point now where there was a guy I read, a scholar actually. Let me give the man his respect. A scholar I read, Derek Bell, or it was Professor Bell, and the literal founder of critical race theory, and he said that racism is intractable. He believed that racism is just permanent. It's so part of how we do things that we cannot extract it from like just human behavior anymore. It's just the way we're just going to do things forever. And we just have to learn to deal with it. And I had intended, when I planned to go to grad school, to challenge that notion by studying racism and like how it can be abated. But I'm coming to see now that the most we can get out of moderate white people seems to be outrage. Just perpetual shock and outrage. Perpetual shock. You can count, if I show in racist interaction on I can just go in my inbox right now and clip any one of them and post it to my page. Just look at the outrage of white people. You'll see hundreds of comments of white people flipping out. And then ask any one of them what they're going to do about that. They won't say nothing, or rather, they will say nothing because the answer is nothing. It's the same with all of these people posting all of this anti-pedophile nonsense. Good for you. Good for you, like identifying yourself as somebody who doesn't like people who rapes kids. Like that's a high bar. So, what are you going to do about it? What are you doing to make your community like less prone to pedophiles, less welcoming to pedophiles? Like, what are you doing other than sharing memes? Because if these are real threats we're talking about, and we are talking about real threats, and they require tangible action, measurable action, not philosophical discussions. We're well past that. It's been hundreds of years, and y'all are still telling us to wait. That's still the message white people have right now. Ask any one of them. Let's wait. Let's get through this election and watch it be another election after that. And watch it be this can has been kicked down the road every single. We waited for the last election, didn't we? And the last one, and the last one, and the last. It's never, ever, ever been the time where it's like, you know what? It's time for us to step up and do the right thing. It's never been that. We've always been stuck at this. And we're pretending now that this is new. It's not. I thought, and many others also thought, that this would be the thing. It felt like there was momentum behind this first step. So while the first step is just, all right, we've done this before, I was expecting the next one. It seemed to be taking place. And then we just kind of froze in place like the Tin Man. Just mid-step. And now we're not taking any real action. We're just making sure that people know that we're appropriately outraged. We're making sure that everybody knows that we don't put up with this while we put up with it. I said a while ago that we need to work on evacuating racism from 3 places: from ourselves, from our circle, and from our community. We are not doing that. Like we're not. We're not at all. Here's an example. The racists in East Haddam are just as comfortable as they always have been. The racist that lives 2 doors down from me, just as comfortable. I've talked about his ass I don't know how many times on here. Damn near everybody in town knows where I live, but not a single person has ever attempted to interact with this dude. Why? Because he's been here and he's established. So while racism does represent a tangible, credible, demonstrable threat to me, his white comfort is way more important. White normalcy is way more important. That's where we've arrived. That's what's it's more than disheartening. It's more than enraging. It's repetitive. It's predictable. It's boring. I'm not showing up anymore for white folk who want to talk about talking about. I'm good with that. I think I've put enough energy into that, and so have many, many, many other black people way better, way smarter than me. There's enough literature out there. There are enough speeches out there. There's enough everything out there for you to familiarize yourself with the struggle and find your way into it. I'm done pretending that this is the first time that we have to onboard all this. No, I'm done with that. I'm done. I personally have been at this for months and still have the same beginner motherfuckers asking the same beginner questions because they think that's involvement. No intention of progressing. No vision of the future at all. And I'm sorry if that sounds overly ambitious, but it's not. We have to have some kind of vision of what community we're going to live in. And we have to recognize the ones that we're living in right now are damaging. Not just inconvenient, but damaging. Injustice is damaging. Right now, we're treating it like it's some sort of mild inconvenience. Like, really what happens to black people is we just get pulled over and it's annoying. Really what happens to women is they make a couple of cents less and it's inconvenient. We ignore the complexity of oppression so that we can be comfortable. The fact is, now that we're aware of it, we're responsible. We don't get to take a vacation until America feels better and decides to deal with its racism. We've been on vacation for 400 something years. We've been waiting for the right moment, so-called, for 400 something years. I'd rather sit in a room and argue with my community than not. And that's a fact. At the very least, you hear people and they hear you. And I know we have this idea of argument, or at least of argumentative exchange, where we think it's non-productive because people just aren't bringing. No, people listen. The right people will show up to the meeting. The people who want to talk and want to be heard and the people who want to listen will show up. And yeah, some assholes will show up because community. But it still needs to happen. This first step nonsense. Let me put it to you another way, like a tangible. I'm no safer now than I was when I came in here, except for the security systems put in. No safer. No less likely. In fact, I'm less safe because almost everybody now knows where the hell I live. People drive by daily beeping and waving hello, thinking it's making me happy and not making me nervous as shit that everybody knows where I live. And yet nobody wants to do a fucking thing about my racist neighbor. Nobody wants to do a fucking thing about any of these races. And if you're mad about my profanity, cool. Be mad. And then do something about this fucking racism happening in town. I should be writing a book today. I should be finishing up my little book and being done. And instead, this. Some people will call what I'm discussing now virtue signaling broadly, right? Posting a whole bunch of memes about how much you don't like pedophiles or anti-pedophile this or pedophile claims and da-da-da, or putting a little Black Lives Matter ring around your thing or blacking out on a certain day, whatever the trend is and all this other kind of stuff. That's virtue signaling. Why? Because it doesn't result in any tangible anything. It just feelings. We need more than feelings. We need way more than feelings. And yet we have a lot of these stalled motherfuckers thinking that they're in progress. You're not in progress. You're stalled. If the first thing you're thinking about when you start taking that next step is, well, maybe we should wait. We've been waiting. I'd rather stumble on the next step than not take it. And right now, we're trying so hard to stay back. Y'all, we're going to trip over this. We're going to trip over this a bunch of times, but we have to take that step. This whole perpetual outrage and shock is getting to the point of, it's past the point of ridiculous for me. How many more people have to die with our mouths all agape and we repost their shit? How many more do we have to have? When is it enough? I really need to know that. That's a sincere question. When is it enough? When is your breaking point? Because we haven't reached it, most of y'all. We keep pretending that we have by summoning this outrage and then using memes as weapons instead of our civic powers. We just use memes. We let people know racism bad, pedophilia not in my house. I said at a protest a while ago, protests aren't bad, but we need better fruit from protests. That was months ago. And while there's been incremental, like there always is, these little tiny steps, we're not prepared yet to take bigger steps. I wonder what that means about America's commitment to racism, because America has a very strong commitment to racism. I'm not going to pretend that's not true. It's true. We've maintained it literally the entire time we've existed, against all odds and every single righteous movement. I have to contemplate whether or not this is a place I can live. Not because I don't love it. Of course I love it here. Nobody's invested. Well, few people have invested as much as black folk have in this land. But if I'm surrounded by people who will tolerate people who are willing to murder me or harm me or deny me or make my life worse, that's not a community. I can't trust my people. I can't trust this motherfucker down the way. I'm disappointed at where we are now. I'm I know there's a lot of people feeling a lot of progress. Um, and a lot of people feel like they're taking some new steps and things. That's great. And I mean that sincerely. I'm not saying that with any sarcasm. But we need bigger steps. We need more than this. We're still being murdered. Our rights are still being trashed. Like we're still being jailed unjustly. We're still being yanked from communities. Like we're still having our economic opportunities squandered, our ideas stolen, etc., etc. Like this is still happening. And we're sitting here like it's some kind of philosophical idea and not a tangible reality being visited upon millions of people every single day. I'm sorry that this is like your first time at the party, but the party's been going on for a very long time. And we need better guests. We need some do something guests. Because it's time for the cleanup. Like, we had a white celebration for a very long time. It was awesome. Let's clean this shit up. I don't want to tell anybody what to post on whatever they post. You just post up like on your Facebook page or whatever. Post whatever you post. But know that like that kind of indignation comes with responsibility. It does. Once you've recognized an injustice, it's your moral responsibility to address it. And when you don't, you are allowing it, purposely allowing it to exist. For whatever reason you decide to choose, whatever excuse you get, good on you. You're allowing that injustice to exist. You're fine with it because I'm not. I'm, in fact, very, very, very tired of it. I'm tired of being told, wait. I'm tired of being told later. I'm tired of it. I'm all the way tired. I'm tired of having this motherfucker living a couple down, like living right down from me and not, he's just the most comfortable human. And I have to go out in the world knowing there's a racist right there, wondering what is he going to feel brave enough to do next? Every single person in town posting all of these memes and all this everything coming after each other on Facebook. Ooh, good for you. And in real life, not one person doing a real. We're putting the brakes on this in real life. We're not showing up in real life. Cool. Pedophilia is real, and we should do something about it instead of posting memes. Racism is real, very real, and we should do something about it instead of posting memes. I'm disheartened that we have so many people who are so anti, who are also so do nothing. And this isn't a lecture. This is an observation, truly, like an observation. If it's not you, it don't apply to you. But it applies to most of you, the vast majority. You don't get to just holler freedom as a slogan and then run away from the work of freedom. I said a long time ago, freedom comes with or without you. This next step is happening. Like, know that. And it's not coming off the strength of a meme or any glorified self-aggrandizing position you decide to take on Facebook with some elaborate post. Just get out in the world and do something. Slap a racist. Kick a pedophile in the junk. Do something. Make this less tolerable where you live. Actively. Otherwise, we're just allowing it to exist. I'm repeating myself. I'm going to stop. I said it would be short, but I'm not at all. I haven't been on Facebook for a while. I'm not going to be on Facebook for a while. So, I'm just going to have limited interaction with it for a bit. This is part of the reason. But it really doesn't matter. I just need time, so that's all. I'm going to finish this book and then come back. Please do something. Do something with all of this outrage, with all of this energy. Take it and put it somewhere tangible. Stop taking down racists on Facebook like that. Like, yeah, call it out, but then like do something in real life. That's what we need right now. Children need people more interested in getting rid of pedophiles than taking an obligatory stance against pedophilia, which is the easiest thing to do. Minorities need more than people posting Black Lives Matter signs and buying them for themselves. We need more than that. We need the action that follows that. We need the tangible, measurable results that follow that. And now, not wait for the election or wait for the... Every single time you tell us to wait, just think about how long it's been. Hundreds of years. Hundreds. How many times have we been told to fucking wait? The idea, the audacity even, to tell black folk in particular to wait at all. It's not even historically ignorant. It's so historically consistent, it deserves nothing but outrage. Every single time we've been told to wait, what followed? Nothing. Like every time. Not most times, every time. So this wait is going to be different, I guess. We need to do better than this. Period. I'm not talking about riots and revolution, all that stupid shit. We need to do better than this. And not going back to the same slow machinery of politics that we know, even when it's working, it fails us. We need to do better than this. We can build better communities without having to vote certain people in. We can. We can and we have. We can be better neighbors without having to vote people in and having us and legislate that. We can and we have. Right now, we're stuck on this idea that we have this racist president, and really that's the problem, when it's not. He's a mirror, y'all. He is reflecting the problem. He is reflecting the USA. And that's why everybody's so disgusted. Y'all don't recognize it's a mirror. You're just thinking, oh no, Cheeto, motherfucker, that's you. That is you. It is an amplified version of you. That's why it disgusts you. You know, like you don't see black folk tripping and flipping out so much over Trump, and white folk are just outraged like it's the first time they ever saw a racist anything in their life. It's you. That's what you don't like about him, is his similarities with you and to you. That's a fact. If you were dissimilar, as I am super dissimilar, I don't think you would have the same kind of like hyper emotional. We've had like every single president kick the can on racism. Trump is no different to me. It's a new kind of garbage. And while we're talking about structural changes that have long-reaching implications for the freedom of all people, yes, I am aware of those, and those aren't irrelevant. What we're not talking about is the system that even allowed for that to take place in the first place. We're talking about going back to that same system that granted us this leader and relying on it to grant us the opposite. Like the American political system is a do-all machine. It can give us the absolute worst and the absolute best. No, it can't. It cannot. In its current form, it cannot give us our best. Our best aren't allowed a seat at the table. Our moneyed are. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. I'm going into a whole other territory. Please do something. Just do something tangible. And then do another tangible thing. And then another tangible thing. We're getting to the cold weather now where everybody's going to retreat and get on Facebook. Get your ass off Facebook and do something real. Put some dollars somewhere. Put some hours somewhere. This has to change. We can. I hate to say it, and I hope with everything I'm wrong. But if this happens again, or when it happens again, that another black person is unjustly murdered, and I see white folk crying and flipping out over it, you are not going to like me. We have the opportunity now to build a community in which that does not happen, to build communities in which that does not happen. It cannot happen. We will not tolerate it. We will not stand it. We can do that now. We don't have to wait for the election. In fact, it is the moral imperative is to act right now. Not, oh, well, let's wait till after Christmas, after everyone has had their gifts. Oh, and we just let black folk die until then? We just let people be fucked up until... No! We cannot call it injustice and then step away from it and still consider ourselves moral characters. We can't. We can't say that's an equality. I see it. And then leave it be and still say we're good people. We can't. And it doesn't matter if we have the ability to abolish it or not. It matters if we try. It matters if we try at all. Why? Because that's literally the right thing to do. Is to stand against injustice. Is to stand up against inequality. Not put it on our schedule. This is not a play date. It's fucking freedom. Anyway. I'm going to end there. Shouts out to the garden. I'm going to do one more walkthrough. I had to pull a whole bunch of sunflowers. It was very depressing. I had to cut down just about all of them. So the garden looks very different. I know that sounds sad. It's just a transition. Like, I'm a little sad to see the sunflowers go, but it happens, and I have plans for next year's garden and plans for a community project of 10,000 sunflowers, which is about a sunflower for everybody in town and whatever else. But I'm going to go away and write a book, and I'll come back. That's that. In the meantime, do something. Voting should be the sum of a bunch of actions. It should be the end of a very long train of progressive actions toward that end, instead of just doing this and saying Biden-Harris like it's some, you know what I mean, like some magical password. It's not going to work like that. Anyway, I will stop. Take care.